Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Shalom Aleichem means peace be upon you in the Ashur language. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing our Bible study by examining the timeline of Noah, the flood, and the origins of Assyria. My intention is not to challenge Scripture, but to carefully examine whether our interpretations of Scripture align with the historical and chronological data we have available. In Genesis 10, often called the Table of Nations, we are told that the nations of the world came from the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Assyria is traditionally traced through Shem, specifically through a figure named Ashur. From this, it is commonly taught that Ashur was a man, one of Shem's descendants, who later became the patriarch of the Assyrian people and was eventually deified. This interpretation has been widely accepted and taught for centuries, and it deserves to be treated with respect. However, when we slow down and read the biblical text carefully, an interesting detail stands out. Ashur is never described as having offspring. This is significant. In Genesis 10, many figures are explicitly connected to sons, families, and nations. Names such as Elam, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram are followed by genealogical expansion. But Ashur is not. There is no biblical record of Ashur fathering children, tribes, or descendants, despite the fact that Scripture is very intentional about documenting lineage when a nation originates from a human ancestor. This absence becomes more striking when we consider that Assyria developed into one of the most enduring civilizations in the ancient world. According to many biblical chronologies, the flood is dated to approximately 2348 BC. Yet Assyrian historical tradition places the earliest temple dedicated to Ashur as far back as 4750 BC, long before the traditional date of the flood. This is also why the Assyrian calendar places their present year at approximately 6775. If Ashur were merely a post-flood human descendant of Shem, this raises an important question. How could his name, worship, and sacred center exist thousands of years before he was born? We also find the name Ashur consistently present in early Mesopotamian records. For example, the Assyrian ruler Puzar-Ashur, dated to around 2400 BC, carries the name as a theophoric element, indicating reverence, not ancestry. This suggests Ashur was already understood as a divine or eternal figure, not merely a human forefather. Additionally, Sargon of Akkad, who lived between 2334 and 2279 BC, established the first known empire in recorded history only about 14 years after the traditionally dated flood. The speed and complexity of this civilization raised serious questions about whether Mesopotamia, also known as Mat Ashur, was affected by a global flood at all. In Exodus 3:14, God reveals his name to Moses as Chaya Ashur Chaya. Often translated as I am who I am, this phrase can also be understood in ancient Semitic linguistic frameworks as the ever-living Ashur is alive. This invites a thoughtful question. Could Ashur have been understood from the earliest times not as a man who became a god, but as a name or title associated with the eternal self-existent God, later preserved in Assyrian tradition. When we place all of these together, the lack of offspring attributed to Ashur, the early temples, the uninterrupted use of the name, and the rapid rise of civilization, we're left with a few possibilities often discussed among scholars. Number 1, the flood described in Genesis may have been geographically localized. Number 2, our current chronological framework may require further refinement. Either way, this does not weaken Scripture. Instead, it encourages us to read it carefully, faithfully, and honestly. So I'll leave you with this question for reflection and discussion. If Ashur is never described as having descendants, yet his name and worship predate the flood, should we reconsider whether Genesis is identifying a man or pointing us towards something far older and more profound? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for studying with me today. Pushim Shena. Chaya. Ashur Chaya.